Hi, I'm session drummer and producer Ajit Gill. I'm an ICMP alumni. I graduated from the BMUS degree course in 2019, and since then I've been working with a whole host of different artists, bands and producers live and in the studio. So I'm here today to talk to you about some tricks and tips I've learned along the way. So some of the exercises we're going to look at today are things that I've picked up over the years that have helped me create new ways to explore my creative flow around the kit, my mobility around the kit, and also improve and look into the details of my ghost notes and dynamics in my playing. So the first exercise we're going to look at is a grouping of 16th notes. We're going to take an accent and we're going to place this on the first 16th note, and we're going to explore this throughout this 4-note pattern. The 16th note grouping is going to be played as right, left on the snare drum, and we're going to notice the right hand's going to fall on the quarter note and the and our left hand's going to fall on the E and the of the 16th note. So to explain that, I'm going to play these as ghosted notes to start with on the snare drum. So we have 1, E and If I was to play ghost notes in my left hand and an accent in my right, it would sound like this. Just so you can see the contrast between the two notes. So we're going to put the accent on beat 1, and we're going to start with 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and We're going to move this 16th note accent along to the E. So now this is going to fall on the left hand. This is also going to mean the first note is going to be a ghost note, so we're going to have to play a soft note in the right hand. So we're going to get 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and So now we can move this along to the and as well. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and We can finally move this single accent along to the last 16th note. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and We can then explore some 2-note accent patterns within this grouping of 16th notes. The first one we'll explore is playing the right hand accented. So this is going to fall on the 1 and the and. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and We can also do this with the left hand on the E and the of the 16th note. So 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and Then we can start to look at groupings of consecutive accents. So we're going to look at the 1 and the E and the and the and finally the and the 1. So here you can see the consecutive accents are going to move together a 16th note at a time throughout this pattern. This is going to sound like this. 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1 E and 2 E and 3 E and 4 E and Once you feel confident with these patterns individually, we can then start linking them up and playing the single accents into the double consecutive accents. So this will sound like this on the snare drum. So the next part of this exercise is to voice these accents onto the toms. So what we can do here is play the right hand accents on the 1 and the and on the floor tom, and any of the left hand accents on the E and the on the rack tom. You can put a foot ostinato underneath it. In this example, I'm going to use walking feet, which is going to be a kick drum on the quarter note, and it's going to be the upbeat 8th note on the hi-hat. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. I'm then going to proceed by playing the accents on the toms. So. Once you feel confident changing between these different ideas, you can then voice those around the kit and improvise between the ideas on the crashes and the toms. So that will sound a little bit like this. Okay, great. So this second exercise we're going to look at is going to explore the different 16th note kick drum positionings within a groove context. So it's going to be similar to how we approached the last exercise by moving the 16th note along one at a time, and then also doubling that up and moving that whole pattern across the 16th note at a time. Now to get into this, we're going to be playing 8th notes on the hi-hat and the backbeat snare drum rim shotted on the 2 and 4. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. I'd also recommend this exercise to a quarter note and 16th note click. We're going to begin by playing the kick drum first on the quarter note, which means it's going to fall on beats 1, 2, 3 and 4. This is going to be very reminiscent of a 4 to the floor disco groove, so it sounds a little bit like this. The next thing to do is we're going to move this kick drum now to the E. So this is going to fall 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. The next thing to do will be moving that kick drum to the and. So 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1. The next single kick drum placement we're going to look at is going to be the So we're going to notice this one falls on the last space between the hands in the grouping of 16th notes. 1 E and 3 E and 3 E and 4 E and 1. We can then go on to look at the consecutive bass drum notes. So same as the last exercise we looked at, we're going to play the 1 E, E and the 1. That will sound like this. Once you feel confident working on these different kick drum placements individually, you can then look at joining this all together into one big exercise, and this is really going to help you explore those different kick drum variations. Once you feel confident playing these patterns individually, you can then bring them together to start improvising between these ideas and create your own. So if you're looking to take this exercise to the next level, you can start by adding a more advanced right hand pattern and exploring those same kick drum patterns. So the last thing I want to talk about in this lesson is how I like to manipulate and change some of the sound sources I'm using to recreate some synthetic and also electronic sounds onto the acoustic drum set. So starting with the snare drum, some of the different sounds and the ways I approach my snare drum. I currently have got a tambourine layered on there as well as an O-ring. This is to reduce some overtones, and because of the hip-hop sound I'm trying to emulate, this J Dilla, Chris Dave sort of sound, I'm using this tambourine to provide me with some extra snap and another texture, as if it was like a sample or another layer on top of my snare drum. So with the snare drum with no muffling, we've got quite an open sound. This sounds great for something like jazz. If I'm looking to dry this sound up, I'd start with my O-ring, and that's going to mute off some of the overtones. That's with and without. To dry this up even more for the hip-hop snap I'm looking for, here's the tambourine on top. It's subtle, but those small differences are what allow us to make these tiny detailed changes within our grooves to really make these grooves feel authentic to the style that we're playing in. So here's an example of this hip-hop sound. 2, 3. Keeping the snare still relatively dry, but I'm going to use here an old drum head, and I'm going to just simply flip this upside down. I've got a 10-inch head here, and here's the sound of the snare drum before, the head laid on top, and this will give you a really fat country ballad sort of sound that you can start to mess with. So an example of this. So to get a more synthetic sound out of my snare drum, more reminiscent of electronic music, drum and bass, I like to take my splash cymbal off my stack I've got going on up here, and I'll lay this on top of my snare drum, and for a bit of extra measure I'm actually going to whack the tambourine on top of that too. Now you're going to notice the pitch of the snare drum has gone up significantly, and it's added this trashy element on top. In the context of a drum and bass groove, this sounds great. So in terms of my cymbals, there's a few ways I like to manipulate the sounds that I'm using. Here, instead of using two separate splashes, I'm stacking them on top of each other to create this electronic clap sound almost. So I can adjust the sustain of this by adjusting the tightness of the wing nut. So here's a loose sound and a much tighter sound, which is a lot more of a clap kind of sound. Now here's a couple of contexts how I can use this. I can layer the stack with my snare drum for this almost clap sound. But then I can also get into using it as another texture and element within a groove. So here's an example of that. So over here I've got a ching ring on top of this hi-hat stack I've got going on over here. It's a 16-inch hi-hat stack. This ching ring just provides me a bit more of a, it reminds me of the Chris Dave kind of sound that I've got going on over here on this side of the kit. and that just provides a bit more jingle, another texture, another layer to the sound I've already got. So that sounds like this. Finally, we can look at stacking some of the bigger cymbal sounds I've got on the kit. So I can even take this ride cymbal that I'm playing over here, this is the riveted ride, and I'm going to simply stack this on top of my regular ride cymbal. Already giving me a new sound. That's just a little bit of an example as to how you can experiment with different sound sources around the kit. Thanks for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed the content that I shared with you. I'm Ajit Gill, and if you enjoyed the content that you saw, you can check out more just like this on the ICMP YouTube channel, and you can also get in touch with the admissions team if you'd like to find some more information on ICMP itself. Thanks for checking it out, and good luck in your playing.